The Starship Endeavour cruised through the inky depths of space, its silver hull gleaming in the soft light of a nearby nebula. In the command center, Captain Mira Solomon stood with her arms crossed behind her back, her gaze focused on the ship's view screen. "Status report, Ensign Tau," Mira called out, her voice cutting through the dull hum of machinery. Ensign Jiro Tau glanced up from his station, his nimble fingers dancing over the luminescent control panel. "All systems normal, Captain. Warp drive operating at peak efficiency. We're making excellent time towards the Zeta Prime outpost." Mira allowed herself a small smile. After 6 months exploring the fringes of known space, the Endeavour and its crew were more than ready for some much-needed shore leave. Just a few more days of uneventful travel and they'd be sipping Zetarian sun wine under binary suns. "Captain." The voice of Lieutenant Una Vorsic, the ship's chief science officer, shattered the bridge's calm. "I'm detecting an unknown vessel on long-range scanners, bearing 127 Mark 285. Mira whipped around, her dark eyes narrowing. "Can you identify it, Lieutenant?" Una shook her head, her violet Thorian headtails quivering. "Negative, Captain. It doesn't match any known ship profiles in our database." "Anne." She hesitated, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What is it, Una?" Mira strode over to the science station, leaning over Una's shoulder to study the readings herself. "Well, sir, the ship appears to be constructed primarily of stone, with traces of copper and bronze alloys." Una turned to face Mira, her expression equal parts baffled and intrigued. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Mira straightened, her mind racing. An unknown alien vessel, potentially hostile, built with materials that wouldn't be out of place in Earth's ancient history? It defied all logic. "Hail them, Ensign Rao." Myra's voice was steady, betraying none of the trepidation she felt. "Aye, Captain." Opening hailing frequencies. Akira Rao, the ship's young communications officer, tapped a series of commands into his console. He looked up, shaking his head. "No response, sir." Mira chewed her lip, considering her options. Protocol dictated that they investigate any unknown ships encountered in deep space. But something about this situation felt off. As if sensing her thoughts, Commander Kai Terran, Myra's first officer and closest confidant, spoke up. "Captain, I recommend caution. We have no idea what we're dealing with here." "I'm aware, Number 1. Mira paced the length of the bridge, tension coiled in every muscle. She stopped in front of the view screen, staring into the star-flecked void as if the answers she sought might be written there. At last, she turned to face her crew, resolve etched into every line of her face. "Here's what we're going to do," Mira began, her tone making it clear that her orders were not to be questioned. "Ensign Rao, continue hailing them on all frequencies. Lieutenant Vorsic, I want constant scans. Look for anything that might tell us who they are and what they're doing here." Una and Akira nodded, already turning back to their stations to carry out their tasks. Mira wasn't finished. "Commander Terran, you're with me. We're going to take a shuttle over there, see if we can establish contact face-to-face." Kai's eyebrows shot up. "Captain, are you sure that's wise? We have no idea what sort of technology or weapons they might have." "That's precisely why we need to make contact," Mira countered. "If they were hostile, they would have already attacked. The fact that they haven't suggests they might be open to diplomacy." She placed a hand on Kai's shoulder, softening her tone. "But I need you there to watch my back, Kentucky. I trust no one else to keep a level head if things go sideways." Kai held her gaze for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Aye, Captain. I'll prep the shuttle for launch." As Kai strode off the bridge, Mira turned back to the view screen, where the enigmatic alien vessel hung in space. Her heart pounded with a heady mix of anticipation and dread. She had no way of knowing that this encounter would change the course of human history, and challenge everything she thought she knew about the universe. In the cramped confines of Shuttle Pod 1, Mira and Kai ran through their pre-flight checks with practiced efficiency. The hum of the engines filled the small space as Kai guided them out of the Endeavour's shuttle bay and into open space. Approaching unknown vessel, Kai reported, his eyes glued to the shuttle's navigational display. Range, 5,000 meters and closing. Mira leaned forward in the co-pilot's seat, straining for a better view of the alien ship. As they drew nearer, the sheer strangeness of the vessel became apparent. It was a hodgepodge of materials, stone slabs fitted together like puzzle pieces, copper plating gleaming dully in the starlight, organic curves melding seamlessly with harsh angles. It looked less like a spaceship and more like some mad sculptor's fever dream. "Are you getting this, Endeavour?" Mira asked over the comm link, unable to keep the awe from her voice. "Affirmative, Shuttle Pod 1, came Una's reply, equally astonished. "I've never seen anything like it. It's beautiful, in its own way." Beautiful was one word for it, Mira thought. Unsettling was another. What kind of beings would construct a ship like this? And more importantly, how had they achieved interstellar travel with technology that seemed more suited to ancient seafaring than space exploration? "Captain, I'm picking up an energy surge from the alien vessel," Kai said suddenly, his tone sharp with alarm. "It looks like they're powering up some kind of dash." The rest of his words were lost as a blinding flash of light engulfed the shuttle. Mira threw up a hand to shield her eyes, squinting against the glare. When it faded, she blinked away the spots dancing in her vision and gasped. The alien ship loomed before them, impossibly close. It filled the entirety of the shuttle's viewscreen, an immense wall of stone and metal that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. "What the hell just happened?" Mira demanded, her heart pounding in her ears. "Kai, report." Kai's fingers flew over the controls, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Some kind of tractor beam, Captain. They've locked onto us. Engines are offline, controls unresponsive. We're being pulled into their docking bay." Myra's mind raced, scenarios playing out in rapid succession. Hostile boarding action, imprisonment, experimentation, each more chilling than the last. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus on the here and now. "Endeavour, do you read?" she barked into the comm, "Shuttle Pod 1 to Endeavour, please respond." Static crackled in her ear, the comm link dead. They were on their own. As the alien ship's docking bay loomed before them, a yawning maw ready to swallow their tiny craft whole, Mira reached out and gripped Kai's hand. He glanced at her, surprised, but returned the pressure. "Whatever happens," Mira said softly, holding his gaze, "we face it together." Kai nodded, a ghost of a smile flickering across his face. "Together," he agreed. The shuttle shuddered as it crossed the threshold of the alien ship, enveloped in a strange, shimmering energy field. Mira closed her eyes, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. First contact. The words echoed in her mind, a mantra of hope and fear. She could only pray that the beings waiting for them on the other side were as curious and peaceful as she hoped, and that this encounter would mark the beginning of a new era of understanding between their species. As the shuttle settled onto the deck of the alien hangar with a gentle thump, Mira and Kai shared one last glance. In that moment, a lifetime of unspoken feelings passed between them, trust, respect, and something deeper, a bond forged in the fires of shared adversity. Then the shuttle's hatch hissed open, and they stepped out to meet their fate, ready to face the unknown together. As Mira and Kai stepped out of the shuttle, they found themselves in a vast, cavernous space that seemed to defy all conventional notions of spacecraft design. The walls, floor, and ceiling were all constructed of the same strange, stone-like material they had observed on the ship's exterior. Copper pipes and conduits snaked along the walls, pulsing with an eerie, greenish light. But it was the beings waiting for them that truly took their breath away. The Zeln, as they would come to be known, were unlike any species Mira had ever encountered. They were tall, easily towering over even Kai's impressive height, with slender, elongated limbs that seemed to flow like water. Their skin was a translucent, crystalline substance that refracted the light in dazzling patterns, hinting at the silicon-based nature of their biology. Most striking of all were their eyes, or rather, the single, large, circular organ that dominated the upper portion of their face. It swirled with iridescent colors, shifting and changing in hypnotic patterns that seemed to convey a depth of emotion and intelligence beyond human comprehension. Mira swallowed hard, suddenly feeling very small and very far from home. She glanced at Kai, who looked equally stunned, his normally stoic face slack with awe. One of the Zeln, slightly taller than the others and with a more intricate pattern of lights playing across its skin, stepped forward. It, or rather, they, as Mira would later learn that the Zeln had no concept of gender, raised a slender, crystalline hand in what appeared to be a gesture of greeting. "Welcome, travelers from beyond the stars," the Zeln said, their voice a melodic, multitonal harmony that seemed to bypass Mira's ears and resonate directly in her mind. "I am Zerios, first speaker of the Zeln. We have been observing your journey and have much to discuss." Mira blinked, struggling to process the fact that she could understand the aliens' words perfectly, despite the fact that they were speaking no language she had ever heard before. Some kind of telepathy? She pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. "Greetings, Zerios," she said, stepping forward and extending her own hand in the universal gesture of peaceful contact. "I am Captain Mira Solomon of the starship Endeavor, representing the United Earth Federation. We come in peace, seeking to learn about your people and your ways." Zerios inclined their head, the colors in their eyes swirling more rapidly. "Peace is a noble goal, Captain Solomon. One that we share. Come, let us retire to a more comfortable setting to continue our dialogue." With a graceful gesture, Zerios led the way deeper into the ship, the other Zeln falling into step behind them. Mira and Kai followed, exchanging glances of trepidation mixed with excitement. As they walked, Mira couldn't help but marvel at the strange, almost organic architecture of the ship's interior. The corridors twisted and turned in ways that seemed to defy the laws of physics, with sudden drops and gravity-defying curves that made her head spin. And yet, there was a strange beauty to it all, a sense of artistry and craftsmanship that spoke of a culture far older and more advanced than anything humanity had yet achieved. At last, they emerged into a large, circular chamber that reminded Mira of a cathedral, with soaring, arched ceilings and intricate patterns of light playing across the walls. In the center of the room stood a large, circular table, seemingly grown from the same stone-like material as the rest of the ship. Zerios gestured for Mira and Kai to take a seat, then settled themselves opposite them. The other Zeln arranged themselves around the table, their crystalline eyes fixed on the humans with an intensity that was both unnerving and exhilarating. "Now then," Zerios began, steepling their long, slender fingers. "Let us begin by sharing the stories of our peoples. We have much to learn from one another." Mira leaned forward, her heart pounding with anticipation. This was it, the moment she had dreamed of since she first set foot on the deck of a starship. First contact with a new species, a chance to expand the boundaries of human knowledge and understanding. But as Zerios began to speak, weaving a tale of the Zeln's ancient history and the strange, otherworldly technology that had allowed them to achieve interstellar travel, Mira felt a growing sense of unease. The more she learned about the Zeln, the more she realized just how little she truly understood about the universe, and how much humanity still had to learn. Hours passed as Mira and Zerios talked, exchanging stories and knowledge with a growing sense of mutual respect and fascination. Kai remained largely silent, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for hidden dangers, but Mira could sense his growing wonder and excitement as well. At last, Zerios leaned back in their seat, the colors in their eyes shifting to a contemplative blue. "Your people have come far, Captain Solomon," they said softly. "To have achieved so much with so little, it is truly remarkable." Mira frowned, unsure how to take the comment. "What do you mean, with so little?" Zerios gestured around the room, encompassing the entire ship with a sweep of their slender arm. "Your technology, Captain. The materials you use, the principles upon which your ships and devices are built. To us, they seem primitive. Like the tools of a child, just learning to walk among the stars." Mira bristled, a flash of defensive pride surging through her. "We may not have the same level of technology as you, but we've accomplished great things. We've explored the galaxy, made contact with dozens of new species, expanded the boundaries of our understanding. Zerios held up a hand, cutting her off mid-sentence. "Peace, Captain. I meant no offense. Your accomplishments are indeed impressive, and we have much to learn from your people. But there is so much more to the universe than you yet know." They leaned forward, their eyes swirling with intense, hypnotic colors. "The technology of the Zeln is not like yours, Captain. It is not based on the crude manipulation of matter and energy, the harnessing of physical forces. Our ships, our devices, they are extensions of our very being. Our thoughts, our emotions, our consciousness, these are the building blocks of our technology." Mira stared at Zerios, her mind reeling as she struggled to comprehend the implications of their words. "You're saying, your technology is alive? That it's somehow connected to your minds?" Zerios inclined their head. "In a sense, yes. The Zeln and our creations are one, bound together by the fundamental forces of the universe. It is a connection that goes beyond the physical, beyond the material. And it is this connection that has allowed us to achieve wonders that your people can scarcely imagine." Kai leaned forward, speaking for the first time since they had entered the chamber. "But how is that possible? How can a ship, a machine, be connected to a living mind?" Zerios turned to regard Kai, their eyes shimmering with amusement. "Ah, the eternal question. The answer, young warrior, is both simple and endlessly complex. It is the very nature of the universe itself, the fundamental truth that underlies all existence." They gestured to the walls of the chamber, the intricate patterns of light that danced and swirled in mesmerizing shapes. "The Zeln have long known that consciousness is the key to unlocking the secrets of the cosmos. That the mind, the soul, the very essence of a being, these are not separate from the physical world, but intimately connected to it." Mira felt a shiver run down her spine as she listened to Zerios's words. She had always known that there was more to the universe than humanity had yet discovered, but this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. "So your ships," she said slowly, struggling to put the pieces together. "They're not just machines. They're alive, in a way. Connected to your minds, your thoughts." Zerios nodded. "Indeed. The Zeln and our ships are one, bound together by the power of our collective consciousness. It is a bond that goes beyond mere technology, beyond the limitations of the physical world." They gestured to the chamber around them, the strange, organic curves of the walls and ceiling. "This ship, the Vrazes, it is not a mere vessel, a construct of metal and stone. It is a living being, a manifestation of the Zeln's collective will and imagination. And it is through this bond, this connection, that we have achieved the impossible, the ability to travel the stars, to explore the wonders of the cosmos." Mira sat back in her seat, her mind reeling with the implications of Zerios's words. If what they said was true, then everything humanity thought they knew about the nature of the universe was wrong. The very foundations of their science, their technology, all of it would have to be re-examined, re-evaluated in light of this new understanding. But even as her rational mind grappled with the enormity of it all, Mira felt a thrill of excitement, of wonder, of pure, unadulterated awe. The Zeln had achieved something that humanity had only ever dreamed of, a true symbiosis of mind and machine, a merging of the biological and the technological that transcended the limitations of both. And now, through the miracle of first contact, they were being offered a glimpse into that world, a chance to learn and grow and expand their understanding in ways they had never before thought possible. Mira looked up at Xerios, meeting their swirling, iridescent gaze with a determined one of her own. "Teach us," she said simply, her voice filled with a quiet, fierce intensity. "Show us the wonders of your technology, the secrets of your bond with the universe. Help us to understand, to grow, to become something more than we are." Xerios inclined their head, a ripple of color dancing across their crystalline skin. "It would be our honor, Captain Solomon. The Zelm have long awaited the day when we would encounter another species worthy of sharing our knowledge, our understanding. In you and your crew, we believe we have found such beings." They rose from their seat, towering over Mira and Kai like a living sculpture of light and stone. "Come," they said, extending a slender, crystalline hand. "Let us begin the journey of learning, of discovery, of transcendence." Mira and Kai rose to follow, their hearts pounding with excitement and trepidation in equal measure. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, fraught with challenges and obstacles they could scarcely imagine. But they also knew that it was a road they had to walk, a path they had to follow. For the sake of their species, their civilization, their very understanding of the universe itself. And so, with a final, determined nod to each other, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever wonders and terrors the future might hold. As Mira and Kai followed Xerios deeper into the heart of the Zelm ship, they found themselves in a chamber unlike anything they had ever seen before. The room was vast, easily the size of a football field, with walls that curved and twisted in impossible geometries. And at the center of it all, pulsing with an eerie, otherworldly light, was a structure that defied all human understanding of technology. It was a sphere, or perhaps a polyhedron, or some strange, hybrid shape that seemed to shift and change with every passing moment. Its surface was a shimmering, iridescent mosaic of colors and patterns that danced and swirled in hypnotic rhythms. And emanating from it, like the tendrils of some vast, cosmic entity, were countless strands of glowing, pulsating energy that snaked and writhed their way through the chamber, connecting to every surface, every device, every living being within. "Behold," Xerios said, their voice thrumming with pride and reverence. "The heart of the Vrazes, the nexus of our connection to the universe itself." Mira stared at the structure, her mind reeling with the sheer, overwhelming strangeness of it all. What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Xerios turned to her, their eyes swirling with a kaleidoscope of colors. "It is the manifestation of our collective consciousness, the physical embodiment of our bond with the ship and with each other. Through it, we are able to harness the fundamental forces of the universe, to bend the very fabric of space and time to our will." Kai frowned, his brow furrowed in concentration. "But how does it work? How can a structure like this, made of stone and light, allow you to travel faster than light, to navigate the stars with such precision?" Xerios chuckled, a sound like the ringing of crystal chimes. "Ah, the eternal question of the scientist, the engineer. Always seeking to understand, to quantify, to reduce the wonders of the universe to mere equations and formulas." They gestured to the pulsing, shimmering sphere. "The answer, young warrior, lies not in the physical components of the structure itself, but in the consciousness that flows through it. The Zelm are a species of pure thought, pure energy, our minds and souls inextricably linked to the fabric of the cosmos itself. And it is through this connection, this fundamental unity, that we are able to achieve the impossible." Mira shook her head, struggling to wrap her mind around the concept. But that goes against everything we know about physics, about the laws of the universe. How can consciousness, thought, have such a profound effect on the physical world?" Xerios smiled, a ripple of color dancing across their crystalline skin. "Ah, but that is the great misconception of your species, Captain Solomon. The belief that the physical and the mental, the material and the spiritual, are somehow separate, distinct. In truth, they are one and the same, two sides of the same cosmic coin. They reached out a slender, crystalline hand and placed it gently on Myra's forehead. Instantly, she felt a rush of energy, of pure, unadulterated consciousness, flowing through her like a tidal wave. Images, sensations, concepts that defied all human language or understanding flooded her mind, overwhelming her senses and sending her reeling. And in that moment, she understood. She saw the universe as the Zeln saw it, a vast, interconnected web of energy and thought, of matter and consciousness, all bound together in a single, harmonious whole. She saw the way the Zeln's minds, their very souls, were woven into the fabric of their technology, their ships and devices not mere machines but living, breathing extensions of their own being. She saw the way they navigated the stars, not through the brute force of engines and thrusters, but through the sheer, overwhelming power of their collective will, bending the very fabric of space and time to their desires. And she saw the way they communicated, not through the crude, clumsy medium of language, but through a direct, telepathic link, their thoughts and emotions flowing together in a single, harmonious stream. When Xerios finally withdrew their hand, Mira staggered back, her mind reeling with the sheer, overwhelming immensity of it all. Beside her, Kai looked equally stunned, his eyes wide and his jaw slack. That was... Mira struggled to find the words, her voice hoarse and trembling. The truth, Xerios said simply. The fundamental nature of the universe, the great cosmic dance of consciousness and energy that underlies all existence. They turned to the pulsing, shimmering sphere, their eyes swirling with a deep, abiding reverence. And it is through this truth, this unity, that the Zeln have achieved the impossible. That we have transcended the limitations of the physical world and become something greater, something more. Mira nodded slowly, her mind still struggling to process the enormity of what she had just experienced. And you believe that humanity could achieve the same? That we could learn to harness this power, this connection? Xerios turned to her, their gaze intense and searching. We believe that all species have the potential for greatness, Captain Solomon. The potential to evolve, to grow, to become something more than they are. But it is a path that must be walked with great care, great wisdom. For the power of the cosmos is not to be trifled with, not to be wielded lightly. They gestured to the chamber around them, to the pulsing, writhing tendrils of energy that connected every living being, every device, every surface. The technology of the Zeln, the power we wield, it is not a mere tool, a means to an end. It is an extension of our very being, a manifestation of our deepest, most fundamental nature. To truly understand it, to truly harness it, one must first understand oneself, one's place in the great cosmic dance. Mira nodded, her gaze distant and thoughtful. I think I'm starting to understand, she said softly. The technology, the ships, the devices, they're not separate from you, from your consciousness. They're a part of you, a reflection of your very souls. Xerios inclined their head, a ripple of color dancing across their skin. Indeed. And it is through this unity, this fundamental connection, that we have achieved the impossible. That we have transcended the limitations of the physical world and become something greater, something more. They turned to Mira and Kai, their eyes swirling with a deep, abiding intensity. And now, through the miracle of first contact, we offer this knowledge, this power, to you. To humanity. Not as a mere gift, but as a sacred trust, a responsibility to be wielded with great care and great wisdom. Mira looked to Kai, her eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. She knew that what Xerios was offering was no small thing, no mere technological advancement or scientific breakthrough. It was a fundamental shift in the very nature of their understanding, a glimpse into a world, a universe, beyond anything they had ever imagined. And yet, she also knew that it was an opportunity they could not afford to pass up. For the sake of their species, their civilization, their very future, they had to embrace this knowledge, this power, and learn to wield it with the same care, the same wisdom, as the Zeln. She turned back to Zerios, her gaze determined and unwavering. "We accept your offer," she said firmly. "We will learn from you, from your technology, your way of being. And we will use this knowledge, this power, to become something greater, something more." Zerios nodded, a smile playing across their crystalline features. "Then let us begin," they said, their voice thrumming with excitement and anticipation. "Let us embark upon the great journey of discovery, of understanding, of transcendence." And with that, they turned and led Mira and Kai deeper into the heart of the Vrazes, into a world of wonder and mystery beyond anything they had ever dreamed possible. A world where the very fabric of the universe itself was theirs to shape, to mold, to bend to their will. A world where anything, everything, was possible. As the days turned into weeks aboard the Vrazes, Mira found herself increasingly immersed in the strange, wondrous world of Zeln technology. Under Zerios's guidance, she and Kai spent long hours in the ship's central nexus, studying the intricate, pulsing patterns of energy that flowed through every surface, every device, every living being. At first, the concepts were almost too alien, too overwhelming for Mira to grasp. The idea that consciousness itself could be harnessed as a physical force, that the very fabric of the universe could be manipulated through sheer force of will, it went against everything she had ever learned, everything she had ever believed about the nature of reality. But slowly, gradually, she began to understand. She began to see the way the Zeln's minds, their very souls, were woven into the fabric of their technology, the way their thoughts and emotions flowed through the ship like the lifeblood through a living organism. She began to feel the pulse of the cosmos itself, the great, eternal dance of energy and matter that underlied all existence. And as her understanding grew, so too did her power. Under Zerios's guidance, she learned to reach out with her mind, to touch the great, swirling nexus of energy at the heart of the ship and bend it to her will. She learned to navigate the stars not through the clumsy, brute force of engines and thrusters, but through the sheer, overwhelming power of her own consciousness, her own connection to the universe. Beside her, Kai underwent a similar transformation. The once stoic warrior became a being of pure energy, his mind and soul merging seamlessly with the technology of the Vrazes until he was as much a part of the ship as any of the Zeln themselves. Together, he and Mira explored the furthest reaches of the cosmos, witnessing wonders and marvels beyond anything they had ever dreamed possible. But even as they reveled in their newfound power, their newfound understanding, Mira couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She sensed a growing unease among the Zeln, a subtle tension that seemed to lurk just beneath the surface of their interactions. And then, one day, it all came to a head. Mira was in the central nexus, deep in meditation, when she heard the sound of footsteps behind her. She turned to see Zerios standing there, their eyes swirling with a deep, troubled blue. "Captain Solomon," they said, their voice heavy with concern. "I must speak with you urgently. I fear that our two species may be heading towards a dangerous misunderstanding." Mira frowned, a sense of unease settling in the pit of her stomach. "What do you mean?" she asked, rising to her feet. "I thought our two peoples were getting along well, learning from each other." Zerios shook their head, a ripple of color dancing across their skin. "I fear that some among my people believe otherwise," they said softly. "They fear that your interest in our technology, our way of being, is not purely academic. That you seek to use this knowledge, this power, for your own gain." Myra's eyes widened in shock and dismay. "What? No, that's not true at all. We only want to learn, to understand. To become something greater, something more." But even as she spoke the words, she felt a flicker of doubt, of uncertainty. After all, wasn't that what all explorers, all conquerors, claimed? That they sought only knowledge, only understanding, even as they used that knowledge, that power, to dominate and control? Zerios must have sensed her hesitation, for they reached out and placed a gentle, crystalline hand on her shoulder. "I believe you, Captain Solomon," they said softly. But I fear that not all among my people are so trusting. And if this misunderstanding is allowed to fester, to grow, I fear that the consequences could be dire indeed. Mira felt a chill run down her spine, a sense of foreboding that seemed to coil around her like a living thing. What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zirios's eye swirled with a deep, troubled violet. "I fear that some among the Zeln may seek to take action against you, against your crew. To prevent you from using our technology, our knowledge, in ways that they deem unwise." Myra's heart seemed to skip a beat, a cold sweat breaking out across her brow. "What kind of action?" she asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Zirios shook their head, a ripple of color dancing across their skin. "I do not know for certain," they said softly. "But I fear that it may involve violence. Bloodshed. A confrontation between our two peoples that could lead to untold destruction and suffering." Mira felt a wave of panic rising up within her, threatening to overwhelm her. She had come here in peace, in friendship, seeking only to learn and to grow. And now, through no fault of her own, she found herself on the brink of a conflict that could tear both their species apart. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm, to think clearly. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice steady and determined. "How can we prevent this from happening?" Zirios looked at her, their gaze intense and searching. "We must act quickly, decisively," they said firmly. "We must find a way to bridge the gap between our two peoples, to foster understanding and trust where now there is only fear and suspicion." Mira nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. "I could speak to your people, try to explain our intentions, our desires. Show them that we mean no harm, that we only seek to learn and to grow." But even as she spoke the words, she knew that they were hollow, empty. After all, how could she convince an entire species of her sincerity, her goodwill, when she herself was not entirely certain of her own motives? Zirios must have sensed her hesitation, for they shook their heads sadly. "I fear that words alone will not be enough," they said softly. "The mistrust, the fear, runs too deep. We must take more drastic action, more decisive steps, if we are to have any hope of preventing this tragedy." Myra's brow furrowed in confusion and concern. "What kind of action?" she asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Zirios looked at her, their eyes swirling with a deep, troubled violet. "I believe that we must exchange hostages," they said softly, their voice heavy with regret. "A gesture of trust, of goodwill, to show both our peoples that we are committed to peace, to understanding." Myra's eyes widened in shock and dismay. "Exchange hostages? But that's barbaric, primitive. Surely there must be another way." But even as she spoke the words, she knew that Zirios was right. In a situation as tense, as volatile as this, simple words and gestures would not be enough. They needed something more tangible, more concrete, to bridge the gap between their two species. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of foreboding, Mira nodded her assent. "Very well," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I will agree to this exchange. For the sake of peace, for the sake of our two peoples." Zirios bowed their head, a ripple of color dancing across their skin. "You are wise and brave, Captain Solomon," they said softly. "I only hope that our efforts will be enough, that we can find a way to bridge this divide before it is too late." And with that, they turned and led Mira out of the Nexus, out into the heart of the Vrazes, where the fate of two species, two civilizations, hung in the balance. Zirios hesitated, their eyes swirling with a kaleidoscope of conflicting emotions. But then, with a slow, deliberate nod, they stepped forward, their crystalline features softening with a quiet, unwavering resolve. "I will do what I can, Captain Solomon," they said softly, their voice filled with a quiet, fierce determination. "For the sake of our peoples, our future. I will do whatever it takes to find a way forward, together." And with that, they turned to the Zeln warriors, their eye blazing with a fierce, unwavering intensity. "Release her," they commanded, their voice ringing out clear and strong in the cavernous chamber. "Captain Solomon is not our enemy, but our guest, our friend. And we will treat her with the respect and honor that she deserves." For a moment, the Zeln warriors hesitated, their eyes swirling with a kaleidoscope of conflicting emotions. But then, with a grudging nod of assent, they lowered their weapons, allowing Mira to step forward, free and unencumbered. She turned to Zerios, her eyes softening with gratitude and relief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "For believing in me, in the possibility of peace between our peoples." Zerios bowed their head, a ripple of color dancing across their skin. "It is not just you that I believe in, Captain Solomon," they said softly, their voice filled with a quiet, unwavering conviction. "But in the strength and resilience of both our species, our civilizations. In our ability to overcome even the darkest of challenges, the deepest of divides." Mira nodded, a fierce, determined smile playing across her lips. "Then let us begin," she said firmly, her voice ringing out clear and strong in the cavernous chamber. "Let us take the first steps on this journey towards understanding, towards peace." And with that, she turned and strode out of the chamber, Zerios and the Zeln warriors falling into step behind her. For she knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, fraught with challenges and obstacles that would test the very limits of their resolve, their determination. But she also knew that it was a road that they had to walk, a path that they had to follow. For the sake of their species, their civilizations, and the very future of the galaxy itself. As Mira and Zerios strode through the corridors of the Vrazes, their footsteps echoing in the eerie, pulsing silence, they could feel the weight of their task settling upon them, the burden of responsibility that they had taken on for the sake of their peoples, their worlds. But even as the fear, the uncertainty, threatened to overwhelm them, they forced themselves to stand tall, to meet each other's gaze with a fierce, unwavering determination. "We have a long road ahead of us, Captain Solomon," Zerios said softly, their voice filled with a quiet, sober realism. "And I fear that there will be many among both our peoples who will resist the change, the understanding, that we seek to bring about." Mira nodded, a sad, rueful smile playing across her lips. "I know," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But we cannot let that stop us, cannot let the fear and mistrust of a few stand in the way of the hope and promise of the many." She turned to Zerios, her eyes blazing with a fierce, unwavering conviction. "We must be strong, Zerios," she said firmly, her voice ringing out clear and strong in the empty corridors. "We must be steadfast in our resolve, our determination to see this through, no matter the cost." Zerios bowed their head, a ripple of color dancing across their skin. "I am with you, Captain Solomon," they said softly, their voice filled with a quiet, unwavering loyalty. "To the very end, and beyond." And with that, they stepped forward, out of the Vrazes and into the cold, unforgiving void of space. For they knew that their journey was only just beginning, that the true test of their resolve, their determination, was yet to come. But they also knew that they would face it together, united in their common cause, their shared vision of a future where their two peoples could live and work and thrive as one. A future where the bonds of friendship, of understanding, would be stronger than any force in the universe. And a future that they would fight for, with every ounce of their strength, their courage, their conviction. As Mira and Zerios stepped out of the airlock and onto the cold, hard surface of the Endeavor's hangar bay, they were greeted by a sea of worried faces, a chorus of anxious voices. The crew of the Endeavor, it seemed, had been waiting for their captain's return with bated breath, their hearts heavy with fear and uncertainty. But as Mira stepped forward, her head held high and her eyes blazing with a fierce, unwavering determination, a hush fell over the gathered crowd. They knew their captain, knew the strength and courage that burned within her like a flame, and they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them with the same unwavering resolve that had carried her through countless trials before. My friends, Mira began, her voice ringing out clear and strong in the cavernous hangar bay. I know that the past few days have been difficult, that the revelations about the Zeln and their technology have shaken us all to our very core. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the assembled crew, taking in the fear and uncertainty that played across their faces. But I also know that we are stronger than our fears, that we have within us the courage and the determination to face whatever challenges may come our way. She turned to Zerios, who stood beside her, their crystalline features glinting in the harsh light of the hangar bay. And I know that we are not alone in this struggle, that we have allies and friends who will stand with us, who will fight alongside us for the sake of peace and understanding between our peoples. A murmur of approval rippled through the crowd, a sense of hope and determination beginning to take hold among the assembled crew. Mira raised a hand, her voice growing stronger, more impassioned with every word. Together, we will build a new future, a future where the Zeln and humanity can live and work and thrive as one. A future where the bonds of friendship and understanding are stronger than any force in the universe. A cheer went up from the assembled crew, a roar of approval that echoed through the hangar bay like thunder. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, that there would be many challenges and obstacles to overcome along the way. But they also knew that they had the strength, the courage, and the determination to see it through, to fight for the future that they believed in with every ounce of their being. And so, with a final, triumphant shout, they surged forward, surrounding Mira and Zerios in a sea of support and solidarity, their hearts filled with hope and determination for the journey ahead. Over the next few weeks, Mira and Zerios worked tirelessly to bridge the divide between their two peoples, to foster understanding and trust where once there had been only fear and suspicion. They met with the leaders of the Zeln, the great thinkers and scientists and philosophers who had spent their lives studying the mysteries of the universe. They shared their knowledge and their discoveries, their hopes and their dreams for the future of their species. And slowly, gradually, the walls of mistrust and fear began to crumble, the barriers of misunderstanding and prejudice beginning to fall away like so much dust in the wind. The Zeln, it seemed, were not so different from humanity after all. They too were seekers of knowledge and understanding, explorers of the vast and infinite wonders of the cosmos. They too dreamed of a future where their people could live and thrive in peace and harmony with the universe around them. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Mira and Zerios began to see the fruits of their labors, the seeds of understanding and cooperation that they had planted beginning to take root and grow. The Zeln shared their technology with the crew of the Endeavor, their strange and wondrous devices that allowed them to navigate the stars and bend the very fabric of space and time to their will. And in return, the humans shared their own knowledge and expertise, their understanding of the physical laws of the universe and the ways in which they could be harnessed for the betterment of all. Together, they worked to build a new future, a future where the Zeln and humanity could stand side by side as equals, as partners in the great and glorious adventure of exploration and discovery. And as the months turned into years, and the years into decades, that future began to take shape, to solidify into a reality that was more wondrous and more beautiful than anything that either species had ever dreamed possible. The Zeln and humanity spread out across the stars, their ships and their colonies dotting the vast expanse of the cosmos like so many jewels in the night sky. They met new species and new civilizations, forged new alliances and new friendships that spanned the galaxy and beyond. And at the center of it all, guiding and inspiring them every step of the way, were Mira and Zerios, the two beings who had dared to dream of a different future, a better future, and who had fought with every ounce of their strength and their courage to make that dream a reality. They grew old together, Mira and Zerios, their bond of friendship and understanding only deepening with each passing year. And when the time came for them to pass on the mantle of leadership to a new generation, they did so with pride and with joy, knowing that the future they had fought for, the future they had built, was in good hands. For they had achieved something that had once seemed impossible, something that had once been the stuff of dreams and legends. They had brought two species, two civilizations, together in a bond of friendship and understanding that would endure for generations to come. And as they looked out upon the stars, upon the vast and infinite expanse of the universe that they had made their own, Mira and Zerios knew that their legacy would live on, that the seeds of hope and unity that they had planted would continue to grow and flourish long after they were gone. For they had shown the galaxy what was possible when two species, two civilizations, dared to dream of a different future, a better future. And in doing so, they had changed the course of history itself, had set the stage for a new era of peace and prosperity that would endure for generations to come. And as the stars twinkled overhead, as the vast expanse of the cosmos stretched out before them like an endless sea of possibility and wonder, Mira and Zerios knew that they had achieved something truly great, something truly remarkable. They had bridged the divide between their two peoples, had forged a bond of friendship and understanding that would endure for all eternity. And in doing so, they had changed the very fabric of the universe itself, had set the stage for a future that was brighter and more beautiful than anything that anyone had ever dared to dream. A future of hope, of unity, of endless possibility and wonder. A future that belonged to them all, Zeln and human alike. A future that they had fought for, that they had bled for, that they had given everything they had to make a reality. And a future that would endure long after they were gone, a shining beacon of hope and inspiration for generations yet to come. For in the end, that was the true legacy of Mira, Solomon and Zerios, the two beings who had dared to dream of a different future, a better future. A legacy of courage, of determination, of unwavering belief in the power of friendship and understanding to change the universe itself. And a legacy that would endure for all eternity, a testament to the strength and resilience of the living spirit, and to the endless possibilities that awaited those who dared to reach for the stars. The end.